I was once a field instructor for 5 or 6 years in a row, but since I can't be in the field for very long without having to do a bunch of different administrative tasks, I hire these folks. And Tyler Merriam has been with us for 3 or 4 years now. He's taught winter and fall practicum, and he is his list of certifications is huge. Swiftwater rescue. He's a big whitewater paddler, big rock climber. He was scuba diving the other day over in Moody Pond. He works for the Sable River Association, and then comes and works for us when he has a little time off. Delphina Lyles comes all the way from the San Juan Islands in Washington to teach this course. And she is a yoga instructor and professional nutritional therapist. So she really brings a different vibe to the courses. And she's also an instructor for the National Outdoor Leadership School out of Montana and Wyoming. So she's got a lot of field days. And then Aram Reeves, he's taught the fall practicum, I think 7 times now. That's a picture of him on the Colorado River. He has a whole progression to how he runs his year. He's a ski patroller in Colorado, and then he comes here and does the fall practicum. Then he usually goes and paddles the Colorado River and then goes right back to ski patrolling. Sounds like a pretty awesome rotation to me. And so a lot of our students end up doing these kinds of things when they graduate. Outdoor work, environmental work. There's a lot of options out there. So a couple things about the winter practicum. People get sometimes a little bit nervous about this expedition. It does look cold, does it not? But this is such a fun expedition because the students get to plan this. And this is after coming back from fall practicum. It's a 10-day expedition. And again, we're seeing those technical skills: backcountry skiing, peak ascending, snowshoeing, crampon travel, mountaineering skills. You can see over on the right-hand side, we're doing everything from climbing Gothics to learning how to self-arrest over on the Orbed slides, and then doing some backcountry skiing on one of the slides in the high peaks down at the bottom there. And so students get really excited about this because it's very different from the fall trip. If you know anything about the winter in the Adirondacks, we're faced with anything from what you see in those pictures, which is nice and dry and a lot of snow, to rain, to sometimes very, very cold temperatures. So the Adirondacks prepares you really well for being in this kind of environment. It is a 2-section expedition now. The first section is all backpacking, and it's moving from point A to point B every day, and kind of learning those skills along the way: how to cook, how to manage your temperature, and how to work together as a group. And then the second section is another 5 days, and we go back to what's called Camp Peggy O'Brien, and that's back in the Johnsbrook Valley. And we actually stay indoors in this lodge, and we have 5 days of peak ascents, backcountry skiing, and things like avalanche awareness. That's one of our instructors, Will Roth, teaching avalanche awareness right outside the lodge. This was last year. And the students really like this format because we get both of the backcountry skills and the hut-based expedition. And our instructors for that, we have Whitney Emery, she's a local Saranac Laker, and she's a National Outdoor Leadership School instructor out of Paul Smith College near Brighton. And she's got a really long history of guiding. Will Roth is one of the top rock climbing instructors for the entire Adirondack area. Works for Rock and River, Eastern Mountain Sports, SUNY Plattsburgh, SUNY Potsdam, I believe, Paul Smith, and then us. He wears many hats, and that's him up on a multi-pitch mixed route climb in the high peaks. So we have some really talented people, some of the best people in the field teaching these courses. Did I see that we had a question? Or am I making that up? I see a little orange box.
No, I typed something into the chat.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So I just wanted to kind of wrap up Wilderness Rec with talking about some transfer options. The biggest and the newest that we have is what's called the 2+2=U. And that's with Paul Smith College. And so this is a fairly new agreement, but we have students that have already taken advantage of this. You come here for 2 years at North Country and get your degree in Wilderness Rec, and you can move on to a couple different options at Paul Smith's on the left-hand side here. So a BS in Parks and Conservation Management, BS in Recreation, Adventure Education, and Leisure Management. And the third one is a BS in Psychology. These are the agreed upon terms between the two colleges. And for those of you that haven't heard, there's a big discount in starting at North Country and then moving to Paul Smith's for your 4-year degree. Paul Smith's has agreed to a cut in tuition for basically SUNY prices for your last 2 years of college. So if you look at the savings over 4 years, it's pretty incredible. In fact, I really wish it was around when I was younger, because I probably would have stayed and just done my 4 years right here in Saranac Lake. One of the other big programs that our students transfer to is at SUNY Plattsburgh, about an hour north of here, and that's a Bachelor's in Science in Expeditionary Studies. And those folks travel around the world internationally and learn how to be, high altitude mountain guides and backcountry ski guides, and the list goes on and on and on. Another fantastic program. I'm actually an alumni of that program as well.
Jimmy, how many people would you say go into the SUNY ESF program as well from ours?
ESF, well, that one is more on the environmental studies, environmental science. So I can talk about that at the end of this. But this is just wilderness. This is just for wilderness rec as an example.
Awesome, thank you.
We've had several students go into SUNY Plattsburgh. One graduated recently, just contacted me and said he just got a job as the climbing ranger in Yosemite. So pretty fantastic things these students are up to after they leave here. Okay, so for those of you that are interested or registered for environmental studies, this is another program, of course, that is going to sort of combine a lot of what I've talked about. And I was a big part in creating this degree program because we had students that were coming in and saying, like, I really wish I could do a little bit of environmental science, but also a little bit of wilderness rec. And so this is the program for you if you don't necessarily want to be going out in the field for 30 days or doing winter mountaineering courses, although you do still have that option. But instead, we have things like studying environmental policy, environment and society, things like that. We do a lot of things like wilderness research. In one of my classes right now, I have students all doing a research project on an issue related to Adirondack wilderness. So anything from fragile alpine vegetation to invasive aquatic species, things like that. There's also wilderness literature as this component. So we talk about some of the classics and how some of these authors really were influential in developing the Wilderness Act in Congress. And then, of course, outdoor studies is also included. So folks that are taking environmental studies will also take Intro to Wilderness Rec and get that experience for maybe a weekend backpacking trip rather than the full-on semester expedition. Some of the core courses that I would highlight in the environmental studies degree, and for some of you, I talked to you about this a little bit on the phone yesterday when we were in the registration process, but courses like Adirondack biology, which is primarily taught in the field, and it's a 4-hour block, usually once a week, studying flora and fauna, and students really like to get out and do that. Conservation of natural resources, a great course that happens in the spring semester, and students learn, how to take these conservation ideas and apply them to job sites. What does that actually look like down the road? Wilderness management is a course that I teach, I just mentioned. Ecology, you're going to see that across the board with most environmental degree programs, right? What is the relationship between organisms and their environment? Important stuff. And then Adirondack history. How does the history of the park play a role in conservation? We like to say that the Adirondack Park is the 100-year experiment because we're unlike any other park in the country. We're not a national park. We're allowed to live here, right? And so we kind of look at all of those aspects. Any questions on environmental studies so far before I move into, I guess I have one more slide. Any questions?
I'm not showing any in the chat. If people want to unmute themselves and ask a question, they can do that too.
Absolutely. I know Zoom parties are a little awkward. There's a lot of dead silence sometimes.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. We'll get through it. Okay, so students always ask, and you should be thinking about this as a freshman coming in, where are you thinking of transferring? And, in these degree programs, I would highly recommend transferring. Getting a bachelor's degree after North Country is going to be very, very important to, the job market. So Paul Smith College, we have moving right into a BA of environmental studies. SUNY Plattsburgh also has environmental studies, likewise with SUNY Potsdam. So with that decision, it would be, where would you like to be geographically? Would you like to stay in the park? Would you like to be just outside of the park, or, even more further towards the eastern part of the state? So, things that people often do after they graduate from environmental studies, they get into environmental education. Maybe they want to work as an interpreter in a national park. That's a really good example of what a lot of our students like to do. Getting into environmental law. Conservation and resource management policy. So looking more towards how does conservation resource management affect wilderness management, and how does it affect how we classify lands in the Adirondacks? There's a method to all of this madness, and it's very important to know that background before you get in there. Recreation, of course, we do talk about recreation, environmental studies. And some folks end up going on to recreation and doing things like parks and recreation, leisure management, and even moving on into graduate programs. Ecotourism is a very big buzzword that we hear a lot in this field. And really what that means is connecting people to place and being sustainable in doing so. And so we hear that word a lot in ecotourism, and I try to bring that topic into a lot of my classes. So that we're at least talking about, some of the options there. Okay. Let's see here. Moving on. Environmental science. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the differences here. Environmental science, again, we're looking at an associate's in science. And so you're going to see a lot more of the hard sciences in this degree program. The biologies, the chemistries, field methods, right? Environmental science, of course, that's the title of the degree program. Interactions of plants and animals, and looking really in depth into Adirondack ecosystems with things like field methods and ecology and field ecology. So where you might see in environmental studies some of these Adirondack history and wilderness literature, in environmental science you're going to see a lot more of like biology 1, biology 2, chemistry 1, chemistry 2. And it's going to start setting you up for doing more of that research, that scientific research. So some of the career choices that we see students kind of take after this: conservation scientists, environmental educators across the board, anything from the New York State DEC to private institutions. We see students go on to be environmental engineers. I had a graduate 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, time goes by way too fast, who went over to Canton to study environmental engineering. And so, students get interested in certain things and kind of move on to very specific studies after their 2-year degree. And this is where we might see like environmental technicians or wildlife biologists. Folks that, we have a lot of students coming through this program that are interested in fisheries and wildlife, and they might take this degree program to kind of kick things off to get some of that background. And just another slide about what people are doing for transfer. So of course we have the Paul Smith's option, and Paul Smith has so many degree options. It's hard to keep track of them. I have three students actually right now who graduated last year who are currently at Paul Smith's. One of them is studying fisheries and wildlife science. One of them is studying ecological restoration, and one of them is traditional environmental science. So each one of those paths would have just a different set of coursework. And as you go through your degree program from a 2-year degree to a 4-year degree, you're just narrowing down your studies, right, to something very, very specific. And environmental science program at SUNY Plattsburgh is very, very well known. And students will often just travel 40 minutes north and be involved with that program. There's some excellent professors up there. I am an alumni of SUNY Plattsburgh, and I took a lot of those courses and really, really enjoyed them. So I like to show a couple slides of just like what graduates are up to, recent graduates, just to give an idea of where people are going and what the timeline looks like. So I just talked to Tara the other day. She lives here in town. She's the manager of a company called Crua Outdoors. She graduated from Wilderness Rec in 2018, and I actually got an opportunity to guide with her in the field, which is really cool, for St. Regis Canoe Outfitters. But she loves her job, and Crua Outdoors is this company that sells these big, they call them glamping tents, glamour camping tents. And the company is actually based out of Ireland, but their North American headquarters is in Saranac Lake, believe it or not.
That's how I would go camping.
Yes, that's how a lot of people go camping.
I saw the Crua Outdoors sign. It's pretty close to where my apartment is, and I had
right
no
idea.
Yeah, I had no idea what it was. So it's nice that you're talking about this, and now I know.
Yeah, they moved to town maybe 4 years ago, and they set up shop here because we're, of course, in the middle of some of the most beautiful backcountry in the Northeast. And so Tara was a manager at St. Regis for a long time as well, and she's a New York State licensed guide and still does it on the side. Another student who is a dual major in wilderness rec and environmental science, Julie Landry. I love this picture of Julie. This was actually on fall practicum. We were walking through Long Lake. We let the students get some ice cream like halfway through. And of course, that opens it up to silly photo ops because students haven't been in civilization in a while. She decided to do a dual degree, and she was interested in both programs. And she is a big time angler, so she's always out fishing. She currently works as a fishing guide down in Warrensville, I think. And she was recently featured in the Adirondack Life magazine. So she's been doing some freelance writing for some of these big publications, which is awesome to see. And then she's also worked for the Adirondack Watershed Institute, and that's based out of Paul Smith College. And that is a program that helps try to mitigate some of the invasive aquatic species that we see up here in the park. So she's done a lot of cool stuff too. Mr. Jed Brown, I just talked to him on the phone recently. This is a great picture of him. He graduated with a dual degree liberal arts in wilderness rec in 2015. He's currently in the program called Teach for America and working on his master's at Johns Hopkins. We're really, really proud of Jed. Awesome guy. He's done the Appalachian Trail, I think, twice now, and he's done the Pacific Crest Trail. He worked in wilderness therapy for a long time, doing work with youth at risk. He was a master level instructor, and just a great, overall great guy. SUNY Chancellor's Award winner of 2015, and we keep in touch with him a lot. He actually emailed me recently to have him send him a North Country pennant for his new office while he's teaching. So North Country's being represented in his office.
He was a classmate of mine too, Jimmy.
Was he really?
Mm-hmm.
At
here at North Country.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, awesome, yeah. So he sort of combined his outdoor education background with just education, and so he took that philosophy into the classroom, which I love to see. Hugh, just talked to Hugh the other day as well. We always keep in touch. He graduated last year, and he's done so much in his first year. It's incredible. He's a raft guide for Adirondack Rafting Company. He worked for Knowles Northeast, which is right here, right outside of Saranac Lake. He was kind of logistical support and running shuttles and things. He was also a guide at Adirondack Lakes and Trails, where I work in the summertime, so we did some paddling trips together. He's a New York State licensed guide. He's also got his Swiftwater Rescue and his Wilderness EMT. Which is a step above wilderness first responder. So he can now teach wilderness first responder courses. So we're really proud of Hugh. And he's actually an electrician by trade from New York City that decided he wanted to switch his career at age 28. So he came up here, and sure enough, he switched his career. I think he still does some electrical work on the side, but really enjoys his new lifestyle. And that's all I have. I don't want to talk too much more. I think I've been talking for probably over half an hour now. I'd like to open it up for questions if anybody has any, or any thoughts on different degree programs.
So at this point, I would like people to be able to just ask the questions over their audio. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and unmute yourself so you can ask those. And then Jimmy would be able to answer them. Anything that is admissions related or financial aid related that's not program specific, I can answer those or point you in the right direction. We do have general admissions sessions as well as financial aid general sessions on Zoom just like this, so you would be able to sign up for those as well. So it looks like, Nick, you're unmuted. Do you have a question or a comment or anything?
One question I did have was I would be interested in some of the work study programs that I know that you guys have mentioned on the call last week. I wonder if there are any work study programs geared towards the environmental science, environmental studies programs.
You know, that can certainly be set up. I think Judy Steinberg had a couple students involved with work studies in environmental club, as I recall. We have a longtime faculty member who's actually retiring this year, who is the former director of environmental science, and she has opened up opportunities like that. So that can be something that we look at for sure.
Okay.
I'm just making a note of that so that I can reach out to Scott too for financial aid and see if we can come up with something for you, Nick. Anna, do you have any questions? Logan, Caleb, or Mike? Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe.
Caleb, you're unmuted. What's up?
I had a question, but I kind of forgot.
Okay.
That's okay. If you think of it, you know, you can always email us, or, you know, we have a really good presence on social media as far as the Wilderness Rec program is concerned. I don't know if any of you have checked that out, but to get more of a visual of what we're up to in the field, that's a really good place to look. And there's lots of pictures of students doing things instead of just like, you know, the candid shots.
Yeah, so at the end of the meeting, once the Zoom is over, I will be sending you guys a follow-up email. I can add Jimmy to that email, thanking him and thanking you guys for appearing. There's also going to be a link to an anonymous survey that I would really appreciate you guys filling out so that we can get some feedback to make these the best opportunities for our students moving forward as well. And then any questions that you guys have, since Jimmy will be on that email chain, you can respond to him directly too.
One of the questions that people sometimes have, and this is a new thing that I've been doing for a couple of years, is can you sort of take, you know, if you're declared in one major, can you take classes from another major? And the answer is yes. We had our first environmental studies student this year take the fall practicum expedition, and she just wanted to get that leadership experience, and she had, you know, a really good time in the field and was able to get 4 credits towards her degree. So we can certainly make that work. And I've opened up some of these expeditions to really every degree program, every environmental or outdoor degree program, because I feel like it's relevant for any of these experiences to be on the table. So, you know, I think when people pick a degree, sometimes they think they have to just do that, but we can certainly work around and kind of design things for what what kind of experience you're looking to get.
One more question that I did have.
Sure.
I signed up for classes yesterday with Sarah Shoemaker, and I believe that what I was more geared towards was environmental science, but from the presentation, geared more towards environmental studies because I'd like more of a broader introduction to things, because I'm not entirely sure whether I'd rather go for the environmental science side or the wilderness recreation side.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like the classes I've signed up for, I've got principles in biology, environmental science, and Adirondack biology, as well as math and English.
Mm-hmm.
Are there classes that would be more geared towards environmental studies, or do I kind of have a good baseline going there?
That's a good start. And we can send you a snapshot of the program worksheet for both programs, but the courses that you mentioned, so environmental science, you would have to take for both degrees. Adirondack biology, you'd have to take for both degrees. The only one that you would not have to take is principles of biology. So the English and math, I think, were the last ones you mentioned. That's really across the board for any degree program. And that's usually first semester stuff. But you'll find that there's a lot of the same kinds of courses in your first semester, and then as you move along, you kind of decide which path you want to take. At least, that's how we're looking at these three programs. Some people start off in environmental studies and they want to go into wilderness rec, or they start off in environmental science and want to switch over to environmental studies, which is totally fine, and it can be done very easily.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was going to mention, Nick, if you have, having spoken with Jimmy today or moving forward, you decide that you want to change your program from one to the other. Since you're already registered for classes, you would go through the registrar's office as well as your academic advisor. Students that are not yet registered for classes can go through the admissions office and just send us an email. But you would need to be in contact with your advisor, who sounds to be Sarah Shoemaker, and then the registrar to make that change with your account. But it's so simple. You would just need to send an email and make that happen.
Okay. Thanks.
Logan, do you have any questions? Or Mike? Caleb?
Yeah. So you said we could email you if we have any more further questions on these stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I will send an email that adds Jimmy to it as well. So then you'll have his contact information, and if you have a question directly for him, you can send a message to him.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can send copies of the different program worksheets that would lay out the different core of the program, as well as what we call the course sequence. So what would you take first fall semester? What would you take for spring semester, et cetera? So that gives people a little bit more of a bigger picture look at what they're going to be doing.
Awesome. Selena, do you have any questions? Or Kyle, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, but I'm just wondering if it's not too late for me to change careers.
Never too late.
Going out in the wilderness sounds so fun if I just weren't afraid of bears. I think I could see myself doing it. Wow, it really looks exciting and complete and comprehensive. Thank you for sharing all that great information. It's exciting. I wish I were a bit younger and a little bit more adventurous, because I think I'd be jumping in your canoe.
Yeah, the pictures are very appealing.
They're awesome. I was wondering one thing. Do you offer any photography types of things with those, classes? It just, you've got some really great pictures. I was just wondering, do you ever have anybody from like the photography clubs or anybody venturing out with you at all?
We have students that have taken digital photography during the same semester, although that depends on whether or not the art program is offering that at the same time. And so they've done projects that involve photos that they've taken from the field. But we've also had numerous people come and visit us in the field. We had Mike Lynch, who's the photographer from Adirondack Explorer magazine, come and visit us in the field this year for 3 days and just take pictures of what we were doing. And they did a cover story for us in the Explorer, which is on our, I believe, on the website for North Country.
I'll have to look at that. I know there was another article, I think, in this last Adirondack Explorer on, or at least written by someone from the Wilderness Rec program that talked about bringing students into the wild. And it really does sound like an exciting program, and it's really interesting. So kudos with a great job today, and kudos for all your students that are thinking about going in there. You may have to come out and rescue me if I climb some mountain someday. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Selena.
Kyle, do you have any questions?
Sorry, I was just typing through the chat, but no, this has actually been great. Yeah, I've learned a lot about what the program entails, and then also with the environmental programs too, because I know that's something where we're seeing more people coming in looking for that type of thing with our college. So thanks for covering that, Jimmy. That's been amazing.
Absolutely.
And as you know, Selena and I were here just kind of watching and being secret shoppers, just kind of seeing what the program entails and everything. So you've done a great job. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Well, if there are no other questions, I am going to say a big thank you to Jimmy for doing this with us and hosting this and meeting with students. And then I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. My cat is trying to climb on my keyboard right now. Here he is. he's being a brat. But I, again, will send you that follow-up email. Please take the time to fill out that anonymous form so we can make these the best possible meetings for our students moving forward. And I hope to see all of you soon. I hope this pandemic decides to be taken care of. I hope everybody is staying safe and doing what they need to do, doing their part. And I hope that in the future, I can see all of you on our campus sooner than later, I would say.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Marissa. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for coming.